Hello, my name is Dave Milano, and today I'm going to be speaking with you about blended families. Blended families are becoming the norm in our society as divorce rates rise. The blended families are increasing. In fact, if the current rate continues, about 35% of kids will be a member of a blended family before the age of 18. The reason I chose blended families is because my current wife, Jessica, and I began our blended family in the year 2013. Both of us had previous families and had gone through a divorce. I brought my daughters into our blended family. My oldest daughter is 19 now, and my youngest daughter is 16. And then my wife's daughter, Jayla, is 12. So that's what we started our blended family off with each of us bringing children into the mix. So why I wanted to do about blended family is I wanted to we actually began this. We had some problems with our blended family, and so my wife and I began researching this topic in 2014, and so I had some of this research already, and I wanted to continue the research and then compare it after us being married and having a blended family for 6 years, and just sort of compare my experience with a blended family with what the research that's been done on the blended family. So that's why I chose this topic. The definition of a blended family: an adult couple in the household, but a biologic parent is elsewhere. The relationship between one parent and a child predates the current marriage, and one adult step-parent is not legally related to the child. Children may be members of more than one household, which is the case for my daughters. My daughters are both. My oldest daughter's out of the house now, but when she was in the house, and then my younger daughter, they both spend half of their time with their biological mother and her new husband. And then from my wife's standpoint, her daughter's dad is out of the picture. He lives in Michigan and is not part of her life. So and then the last thing is virtually all members have sustained a primary relationship loss, and I think sometimes that relationship loss isn't complete. Even just going for me, it was a big adjustment going from having my daughters full time when I was married to now only being able to see them half the time. That was a big adjustment. So and for myself and for my daughters. So I'm going to go into some of the myths that are associated with blended families. The first one is stepmothers are wicked. You see that in a lot of movies. Stepmothers like Cinderella. Stepmothers are portrayed as being wicked. This isn't true. The reason they're portrayed that way is because just motherhood by nature is such a relationship between a mother and her child, and so now you have a stepmother coming in and playing the same role as a mother, but they don't have the background, they don't have that relationship, so that relationship's evil strained, and then the child's view toward the stepmother is that she's wicked, but that's usually not the case. The next one is love occurs instantly. This it's easy to, when you're going into a new blended family, and it's normal to be optimistic, but like in my wife and I's case, we did have love instantly, but we didn't have love instantly for the child, and sometimes it's you want to be genuine too. So if you don't have a relationship with someone, I believe it's risky to express immediate love for them and have it not seem genuine. So I've developed a huge amount of love for my stepdaughter Jayla, and my wife has a lot of love for my biological children. But I think in both cases that wasn't something that we had immediately. It was something that we had to work up to. A blended family can and should duplicate a biological family. I think everybody has their idea of what the perfect family looks like, and and a biologic family, is kind of what everybody's comfortable with. But just with the things that are built into a blended family, it's not going to be the same. Just for one, just accommodating for the other relationships, the other family. There's constantly pickups and drop-offs and the different dynamics and things like that. So a blended family, there is going to be differences, and I think it's important to embrace those differences. Children of divorces and remarriages are forever damaged. I think children can be damaged, but I don't think they're forever damaged. I think it's important that both parents handle a divorce responsibly. I personally, I'm a Christian. I don't believe that divorce is a viable option, but they are a reality. They do happen, and I think it's important when they do happen that parents put the kids first and make sure that they're not wrapped up into any of whatever the disagreements are. And I think damage can be very limited that way, and I think kids can get through it. And in fact, my wife and I have now 2 new members of our family. I have a son, and a 5-year-old son, and a 3-year-old daughter, and there's just a lot of love in our blended family now after 6 years, which wasn't the case immediately, but I don't think anybody would change anything now after 6 years. But when things first start, it can be pretty strenuous. It is helpful for children's adjustment if their biological fathers are withdrawn from them. I found this in my research. I've never heard this, and I certainly don't think it's true. In fact, I work with at-risk kids, or alternative education kids, I should say, and they come from there's a lot of the kids are in the class that their biological fathers aren't a part of their life, and they need a role model, and in fact, it's one of the roles that being someone who mentors to them. It's one of the roles I kind of pick up, because their fathers aren't in the picture, and they're not taught the right way to do things. And I think you can definitely notice that a different in terms of behavior and outlook with the girls and boys that don't have a father in the picture. So I definitely don't think this is the case. I think as long as the father's solid, he should definitely be in the picture. Remarriage after a spouse death goes more smoothly than after a divorce. Again, I think that's a myth, because just the grief that a loss like death causes, I can't see in any scenario where that just adds that much more pain to the situation. So I definitely think that's a myth. And then the last one is blended family integration occurs quickly. The research I've done said 3 to 5 years, and for our situation, this is about right. It was a huge adjustment for 3 years, and specifically, or in the early stages with my oldest daughter, she had taken on a role in our little family as kind of a mother figure. Her mother wasn't around a lot the first couple years after our divorce, so she had taken on the role. She was she did a lot of laundry and did a lot of dishes, things that I'm not particularly good at, and she just really picked up the loose ends. When I'd come home, she'd make sure the house was clean. So then when we blended our family and my wife came in, she immediately assumed some of those roles. So there was some role confusion, and then just a matter of love, almost a sense of who loves who the most, or do you love me more than them, or anything like that. And my pastor actually handled this situation the best. He spoke about explaining to everybody that your heart was divided up into certain parts, and that part was for them specifically, and that wouldn't change. So some of the other things, avoid letting issues from old relationships spill in the new family setting and onto the children. We talked a little bit about that before. it's really, you got to settle those issues before you start a new family. It's very cancerous to the family to have that involved. And then just being open to blending styles. Everybody's got their own idea of normal, and just being adaptable to what everybody, and what everybody sees as normal, and accepting, being accepting of certain things, not everything, but and then compromising on what's okay, even if it's not a perfect vision of what you may have had envisioned. Blended families must be more flexible than traditional families. I think this is important. We talked about it a little while ago, just because of all the accommodations in different families and just different dynamics involved. It's not going to be the exact same. So some of the problems, we talked about role confusion. I think that was one of the biggest things that we came into, was just having everybody want to know where they stood with everybody else, and having all the kids feel like that they have an equal amount of love from both parents can sometimes be a challenge, especially in the early stages. And then discipline confusion. This is something that my wife and I have come with a lot. She's a very strict and just the rules of the house are the rules of the house, and that's how she views things, and that's how her house was. Her house was growing up. From my experience, it's been a lot more just even big problems. I tend to want to discuss through and handle in a way that is more just explain to them the consequences, the natural consequences, and not so much of a firm hand as my wife. So that's how I was raising my kids, and she raised her daughter. So sometimes they don't get equal treatment, and trying to find an area where it's fair for everybody can be difficult. And then the last one I had here was sibling conflict, which we haven't had a lot of. Luckily, Jayla and my daughters Aaliyah and Lindsay got along really well. So the last thing I'm going to read is this was the 5 stages of the 5 stages that were based on clinical and non-clinical interviews with blended family members. The first one was the fantasy stage, in which members hold unrealistic, idealized expectations. The second stage is the emergent stage, in which members are confronted with the daily challenges of blended family life and expectations are shattered. The third is the awareness stage, in which family members attempt to make psychological sense of their confusion. The next is the mobilization stage, a highly conflictual stage in which feelings are expressed and initial efforts at negotiation and resolution are attempted. The next one is the action stage, in which members establish new agreements, thereby putting in a place of solid base upon which to build. The next one is the contact stage, in which positive and emotional bonds from between and among various members. And the last one is the resolution stage, which finds a solid and stable family unit in place. I think it's important to note that the guy, Papernow, that created this model, said unsuccessful blended families do not get beyond the 4th stage. And then the three things that I have down here on how what'll help families join together is boundary management, conflict resolution, and role negotiation techniques, making sure that everybody's comfortable in the role. Thank you so much. Have a great day.